It's Friday, November 27. This is the news on PBCJ. I'm Simone Absalom. National Works Agency CEO E.G. Hunter says it will cost the country approximately $5 billion to repair the roads damaged by recent heavy rains. He was speaking at Thursday's sitting of Parliament's Public Administration Appropriations Committee.
Our preliminary examination reveals that the total bill for the main road network is going to be somewhere in the order of about $5.5 billion, of which about half goes into initial clearance of block roadways and some initial activities to make the roads drivable. We're not pretending that we are reconstructing these roads, and we do acknowledge that the works that we're doing in the initial phase is of a temporary nature, designed largely to get people to be able to move about. The question of the permanent solution is something that we'll have to tackle as we go along.
Mr. Hunter reported on 3 roads that remain impassable. One is the vital Gordontown Main Road.
At last count, we had about 206 roads which were impacted, and as of today, only 3 of those remain unopened or inaccessible. There's still one in Clarendon, which you could add to this to make 4. And the inaccessibility of the one in Clarendon has to do with the need to physically reconstruct some of the roadway. The others, well, there's a Gordontown Road, which is well known and it's a major challenge. We hope to have further discussion with our parent ministry today into tomorrow so that we can sign off on a plan of action. But we are constructing a bypass to the Gordontown Road as we speak.
The country is seeing an uptick in COVID-19 cases, and this has prompted a cautious response from the health authorities. The public is again being urged to obey health protocols. We get more in this report.
At Thursday's COVID conversation briefing, health officials discussed the rise in cases over the recent weeks. Western parishes such as Hanover, St. Anne, Westmoreland, St. James, and Trelawney came up for mention.
You would have seen that in the north and the west, we would have been having quite a number of cases in the west. So we are having
St. James, Trelawney, St. Anne.
Right. And we are now having our increase in cases in the west as compared to the east.
So the bulk of that rise in the chart is a function of the increase in cases in the west. So we're appropriately here, and you may have to give us a little your opinion on that.
There are still activities happening. People are still having parties and other gatherings in homes, and we have to really look at those activities to ensure that as we are going to the Christmas season, we can cauterize this increase we're seeing.
Health and Wellness Minister Dr. Christopher Tufton also weighed in.
The Prime Minister spoke in Parliament on Tuesday, and he announced keeping the gathering limits to 15, whether you are inside or outside, whether you are in your private space or in a public space, and the prohibition on parties and events. And again, we know it's difficult, but it is necessary given the threat that we face.
As the country continues to grapple with the virus, on Thursday, these were the reported COVID-19 figures. 2 new fatalities were recorded, pushing the country's death toll to 250. They are a 74-year-old male from St. Catherine and a 62-year-old female from Trelawney. 59 new cases were also reported, bringing the country's total to 10,600, with 4,375 of those cases being active. The ministry says 108 additional people have recovered, bringing recoveries to 5,829. In the meantime, 75 people are hospitalized, 9 are moderately ill, and 8 are critical. For the news on PBCJ, I'm Gabrielle Thompson.
The Ministry of Finance and Public Service is warning people to avoid sharing false messages online regarding the distribution of COVID-19 government grants. In a statement to the press, the ministry notes a false message being circulated online stating, quote, "Government of Jamaica has ordered payment of $200,000 to all citizens above the age of 18 years old," end quote. The Finance and Public Service Ministry says this statement is false. They're reminding the public that the Government of Jamaica, GOJ, has been formally communicating all COVID-19 response programs, such as the CARE program, via the GOJ's official platforms. The Jamaica Public Service Company customers will soon see a streamlined billing cycle. The JPS says this should improve efficiency in its billing cycle. The utility company explained in a statement that, quote, "Customers' bills will become due towards the end of the month, that is from the 26th to the last day of the month. This will be of particular benefit to customers paid towards the end of the month," end quote. The JPS says the exercise will start with a pilot project in St. Catherine, Clarendon, and St. Andrew North from November to December. Customers can get additional information on all their telecommunication platforms. Parents have just one more week to apply for a tablet for their children. Applications for the government's Own Your Own Device incentive program aimed at assisting with the purchase of tablets or laptops for needy students who are not on the Program of Advancement through Health and Education, PATH, closes on December 4. Minister of Education, Youth and Information Favour Williams spoke about the program at a handover ceremony for another such initiative, the Tablets in Schools initiative. Here's more in this report. The application form should be completed online. However, where upload is not possible, application forms can be returned to the Education Ministry and the upload will be done there. Education Minister Favour Williams explains.
The registration period is happening right now. You can go to the website, oyoD.educate.gov.jm. It will add about you as a parent or guardian, about the school. You enter that information, you get a reference number, hold on to that reference number. When we close the registration period on December 4th and we verify the information, 36,000 families will receive this benefit.
If you are not able to access a tablet or laptop for your child with this program, or if you'd like to contribute, you can become a part of the One Laptop or Tablet per Child initiative.
It's a broad appeal to businesses in Jamaica, to individuals, to our diaspora, meaning those Jamaicans who are abroad, to our international partners, to come on board with us to help our children to get the device so that they can gain access to the online world. And this is working out quite well. They are collecting resources.
Minister Williams says $100 million has been allocated in contributions and commitments under that initiative so far. On the flip side, Minister Williams says she is aware that getting a device into the hands of students is not enough. She says parents, teachers, and students need quality, affordable access to the internet.
Parents, students, communities need access to the internet. You need good access, you need affordable access. So what the ministry has done to date is that we have launched the Google Suite Learning Management System. I know some of the principals that are here and teachers are familiar with it. It's where teachers create the virtual classrooms and meet their students online and are able to conduct classes that way. And the ministry has ensured that the ministry is bearing the cost for both the teachers and students to be on the learning management system.
The aim is to equip students with technological learning instruments. This, the Education Minister says, will be a permanent feature of the education system.
I encourage the students to travel the world using your device. You can go to Japan, Australia, Nigeria, India. You can learn about cultures in those countries. You can ask questions on Google about any topic that you care to. Use the devices to expand your knowledge base, expand your mind. That is what we'd like to see.
She says the country is moving towards developing a digital economy, and a technology-based education system will help to facilitate that development. Minister Williams was speaking at a recent handover ceremony under the Tablets for Students initiative at Licensed Primary School in St. Thomas. Under this initiative, the government has been distributing tablets on a phased basis to students under the PATH program in grades 4, 5, and 6. One of the key recommendations of the sexual harassment legislation is for a tribunal to review matters. Head of the Bureau of Gender Affairs, Sharon Coburn Robinson, believes the tribunal should be evenly balanced in terms of its gender composition.
If you look at the composition of the tribunal, it would appear as if it could be very largely male-dominated because of the composition. Let me just read what it says here. So the membership would be 4 attorneys at law, 4 mediators, 4 other qualified members. And of that 4, the groups could come from persons in labor relations, gender specialists, trade unionists, justice of the peace. And the tenure is 3 years. Because of the fact that we want to have fairness and equity for the persons who are bringing their cases to the tribunal, the idea is to try to have the balance. It might not necessarily be 50-50. But the idea is to try to have a balance so there's no overwhelming composition of male or overwhelming female. That's the idea.
However, lawmaker Natalie Campbell-Rodriguez is of the view that the tribunal should be comprised mostly of women. She was speaking at Thursday's sitting of the Parliamentary Joint Select Committee considering the sexual harassment bill.
I wonder if we are more affected as women by this issue. Why is it not a greater balance? Because 50-50 don't mean balance, it means equal. For me, a balance would be where more women are appointed to sit on to deal with an issue where women are disproportionately more affected by that issue.
Route taxi operators have until December 31, 2020 to complete the application process for their routes. The initial deadline was November 20, but National Council of Route Taxi Associations says many of its members have been unable to complete the process in time. Prospective applicants are being reminded to apply through registered route taxi associations only. There has been an increase in the flow of remittances into the island. Gabriel Thompson tells us about this and other business news in the Business Report.
The Bank of Jamaica BOJ says despite the current economic climate, the exchange rate is arguably moderate in its movements. Speaking last Thursday at the BOJ's quarterly briefing, Governor Richard Biles said it would be normal for the exchange rate in a tourism-dependent economy like Jamaica's to depreciate more rapidly in a crisis. Despite this, he says supply has kept pace with demand.
We have generally observed a continuation of two-way movements in the exchange rate. The exchange rate appreciated for most of September and has depreciated moderately since October. The annual average rate of depreciation at the end of October of this year was 6.7%, which, although above the average depreciation of 2.6% for last year, is arguably moderate given the circumstances we face.
The central bank governor said between March and October 2020, daily purchases of foreign currency by authorized dealers and cambios from end users averaged $30.4 million per day.
Slightly lower than the average of $33.4 million recorded last year. Shortfalls in the market have been met by BOJ B-Fixed sales of $242.3 million since the onset of the crisis in March of 2020.
Mr. Biles said the COVID-19 pandemic continues to have a deep impact on the domestic economy, aggravated by recent weather conditions. The pandemic has contributed temporarily to higher inflation. Governor Biles says the BOJ stands ready to deploy measures to ensure continued liquidity in the island's financial system.
The bank will maintain its accommodative posture in an effort to limit the adverse impact of these shocks on the Jamaican economy and to support a sustainable economic recovery. Notwithstanding these circumstances, the capitalization and liquidity levels of the DTIs are satisfying, the current account deficit remains modest, and the NIR is strong. The bank will focus on maintaining inflation within the target range of 4 to 6%, and we stand ready to deploy additional measures where appropriate to ensure the continued smooth flow of liquidity in the financial system.
And the central bank governor says remittance flows to the island have seen an increase of nearly 40% in the September quarter.
But remittances generally tend to be counter-cyclical to economic growth. In other words, when we're doing well, and so the people in Jamaica don't need as much support, it dies down and it flattens out. When we are in need, a hurricane might have hit us, or pandemic, it rises again. So there's a kind of sentimental lever that gets flipped.
Yes.
This spike is being attributed in part to changing travel patterns as well as crisis support since the onset of COVID-19.
I think also there may be one other thing that is substantial. Remember, in this pandemic, one of the big effects is that people can't travel as much. And so that in summer, you would have had a lot of Jamaicans who would return for visits, you could just go to the airport and you see them coming in. And they would have carried a couple of $100 in their pocket as they come in, to spend here. Now, if they can't come, maybe they're sending that money through remittances.
In Thursday's trading session, the JSE combined index advanced by 89 points to close at under 400,000 units. Overall market activity resulted from trading in 76 stocks, of which 37 advanced, 32 declined, and 7 traded firm. The junior market index advanced by 28 points to close at under 3,000 units. Stocks advanced for 138 Students Living Jamaica, Access Financial Services, and Berger Paints Jamaica. Stocks declined for AMG Packaging and Paper Company, Barita Investments, and Blue Power Group Limited. Trading firm were iCreate Limited Ordinary Shares, Margaritaville Limited USD, and Productive Business Solution Limited Ordinary Shares. Sagicor Select Funds Limited Financial was the volume leader with 3.3 million units, followed by Sagicor Group Jamaica Limited with 2.1 million units and Trans-Jamaican Highway Limited with 1.9 million units. Now for the foreign exchange. The US dollar on Thursday, November 26, ended trading at $147.72. The Canadian dollar sold for an average $114.07. The pound sterling traded for $195.53, and the euro ended trading at $178.20. Oil prices were mixed on Friday but remained on course for a fourth straight week of gains ahead of an OPEC Plus meeting early next week. Brent crude futures rose 28 cents to $48.08 a barrel. West Texas Intermediate crude futures slipped 40 cents to $45.21 a barrel. And that does it for this edition of the Business Report on PBCJ. I'm Gabrielle Thompson.
In regional news, the government of Trinidad and Tobago is to spend $11 million for the construction of a community center. After years of waiting, Surrey Village in Lopinot is closer to getting the new facility. The old community center was demolished within the past 5 years and was expected to be rebuilt, but Lopinot Bunyar West Member of Parliament Marvin Gonzalez has assured the community that when completed, the facility will not become a center for criminal activity. Sunil Lala reports.
The purpose of a community center is to bring a community together
to assist the youth in making their mark in society. Lupino Bonner West MP Marvin Gonzalez says Jit Samaru and his Supernova Steel Orchestra is a prime example of this, having used the old community center for their performances. But Mr. Gonzalez is concerned that places like these could attract criminal elements.
During the election campaign, I was approached by groups who I don't believe have the best interests of the community when they heard that the government was planning to construct this community center. But as a member of parliament, of course, I did not, or as a candidate at the point in time, and now I'm the member of parliament, I don't intend to succumb to any group that does not have the best interests of the community together.
He vowed to ensure this does not occur.
If I don't believe that their main objective is to work in furtherance of the people's agenda, I do not plan to work with them, and I'm going to work with the constituency to work against them, to ensure that they are disempowered for the greater benefit of the constituency.
Meanwhile, Minister of Sport and Community Development Shamfa Kujo said this project is expected to be completed in 1 year. She added that this will be another modern community center housing computer labs, an AV room, a gym, laundry area, a training kitchen, and is all part of government's trust to bring communities together.
We've built 45 new ones and refurbished 57 community centers. So that is 102 community centers we've done work on over the past 5 years. And that represents $148 million in doing work on community centers.
MP Gonzalez, meanwhile, assured that plans for his area will also include the construction of a community center in Mausika in the near future. Sonolala.
The United States Center for Disease Control and Prevention has warned that small countries with a 28-day active COVID-19 case recount ranging from 51 to 100 cases will be flagged as high level and issued a level 3 travel health advisory notice. U.S. citizens are prohibited from traveling to level 3 countries. With more than 70 properties in St. Lucian tourism sector reopening for the typically busier winter season, the Prime Minister says the island needs to contain COVID-19 transmission rate to avoid stricter travel advisories to help sustain the flow of international visitors to the island. In sports, we put the spotlight on cricket. Guyanese pair Kemar Paul and Shimron Hetmyer will potentially enter the 2-test series against New Zealand without featuring in a first-class match since March this year. However, West Indies head coach Phil Simmons is in no way bothered by the lack of match time. He says, noting that players are professionals who can adjust.
Unlike the majority of the squad who arrived in New Zealand on October 30 and would have already completed their 14 days of managed isolation, Paul and Hetmyer arrived in New Zealand on November 14th from the United Arab Emirates due to stints in the Indian Premier League. Prior to the IPL, both played in the Caribbean Premier League after they opted not to tour England for the 3-test series in July due to safety concerns about COVID-19. This is West Indies' second series since the pandemic. It is understood they will join the rest of their teammates in the bio bubble on November 26. The same day, West Indies played their final warm-up match against New Zealand A. Simmons indicated Tuesday that Test captain Jason Holder, who finishes quarantine then as well, will be included in the first-class match, but would only join at tea on the first day. The Test series starts December 3rd, but Paul and Hetmyer are expected to feature in the 3 T20s, which commence November 27.
No concerns really. I think they're experienced enough cricketers to know and to adjust their thinking from the T20 format into the Test format. So no real concerns there for me.
West Indies drew the 3-day match against New Zealand A, in which Darren Bravo's 135 was the main highlight. With the exception of the out-of-form John Campbell and Jermaine Blackwood, the other top 6 batters got time in the middle and mid-runs. Simmons hopes more of the same can be done and wants to win this first-class fixture to gain confidence ahead of the first test.
The same again as in the 3-day with the batsmen, the big partnerships, the big scores, and maybe a few more players getting scores and getting time at the wicket is most important in this game. But at the end of the 4 days, the best thing that could happen is to win the 4-day game so that we go into the test match with that kind of success and confidence behind us. So for me, those are the important things. As I said before, the bowlers, they continue to step up every time we go into a test match. So I'm not worrying too much about the bowlers, but I think we need some big scores from the batsmen. So I'll be looking to see if that happens in this 4-day game.
When the test series starts, West Indies will be eyeing their first series win in New Zealand since 1995. It is also the last time they won a test in New Zealand, having lost 8 of the 12 matches since. For the newsroom, Akim Green.
And that's the news. On behalf of our production team, pleasant viewing.